So if you saw the same panel last year, this will be similar. But we also have 2 new panelists joining us. So they can introduce themselves now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we'll save the best for last.
Or actually, let me say how I got interested in sleep, and then we can
Why are you here?
Just so why? So existentially speaking, so when I was younger, like high school, my sleep was basically like stay up till 4 in the morning, like hacking on something, and then like sleep until 6, and then go to school and kind of nap in class, and pound a ton of coffee. And it worked pretty well for a while, but then I started getting really bad anxiety, and I had to give up coffee. So I was like, I need to figure out how to sleep. Perfect.
That's the key.
Yeah, that was weird.
Is that planned? So you have the room after us?
What is it? Well, maybe we can you can talk. We can still hear you.
Or you can
turn the
Yeah, we can turn the. Put like
Well, if they stay like that.
Yeah, not everyone.
All right, keep going.
Okay, yeah, so basically I had to give up caffeine. I had never really felt awake in the morning, and I was using the caffeine to, get myself out of bed. And then I lost that, so I figured out, well, if I can't caffeinate myself, I'm going to actually have to get better sleep. So I started reading a bunch and, Googling, looking through papers, and I found some things that helped. And that's what I'll be talking about today.
My name's Neil Funk, and I got into, yes, Funk, really. That out of the way. I kind of got into the sleep thing when I came by Ed's panel last year at Penguicon. And as he said, this will be somewhat of a recap, some new stuff. But I was, at that point in time, I was really kind of a slave to sleep, almost in a sense where, I did the same kind of things, stay up late hacking, and then I just couldn't get away from getting to bed in the morning. Get more control of my sleep, and being a programmer, I kind of like that, so I really help. And I'll be talking about some programmatic side of things. But I will say I'm a bit starstruck here. Yes.
I have a real name. It's Marie. If this doesn't scan in your brain, this is one of the many handles that the internet spawned for me in the 90s, and the one that I decided to attach to the sleep thing when I started doing it. I sort of accidentally discovered, I didn't intend to discover it, I'm not the first person to do it, the polyphasic sleep regimen. I started doing the Uberman sleep schedule in the year 2000. I named it the Uberman sleep schedule. I've since written a book on it. The second edition of the book is about to come out. I have coupons with discount codes on them for anybody who wants it later. I've been polyphasic since 2008. I have done 4 different polyphasic sleep schedules. I've run a website on it. I've discussed in great detail how it works with other people. My story is very similar to Ed's in that I was a terrible sleeper. I had an awful time with it. And actually my story is similar to both of yours because I'm also a mad life hacker and I won't take anything at face value, and I just had to have like a better way to do it. And I'm happy to say that for the last 6 years I've had 20 hours awake per day. I get crazy amounts of stuff done. I am not only never tired, I'm one of the more annoyingly energetic people most people know. I do kung fu, I play underwater hockey, I work a full-time job, I do all kinds of stuff, and it's largely because I have, like, you wouldn't believe what an extra 4 hours a day will do for you. And on Uberman, you have a 22-hour day. When I was doing that, it was unbelievable. There is, just get it out of the way, there is another panel specifically on polyphasic sleep tomorrow at noon in this same room. So I'm not going to go off on polyphasic sleep too much today. We'll do questions and answers and talk about that tomorrow. This panel is really so that Ed, who way underplays his credentials just in sciencey things, and General research in sleep can give us the skinny on all the different factors that affect sleep. But if you're interested in polyphasic sleep, this is amazingly good information to have. So I'll just kind of probably be chiming in on stuff with naps and other things that I happen to know about.
Yeah, great, cool. So let's get started. Also, like, if anyone has questions or comments, feel free to jump in. I think these always go better when it's kind of an open dialogue. I'd like to be upfront about where my information is coming from. Some of it's from personal experience, some of it is from papers I've read, some of it is from books I've read. So I'll try to call that out as things come along. Most of what I'm going to talk about the basics of sleep is from a great book by, his name is William?
Someone named Marie?
Yes. No, there's also a great book. Yeah, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. But no, William C. Dement, The Promise of Sleep. He is the researcher who discovered REM sleep. Yeah, and he wrote it. It came out like I think maybe 20 years ago, but he discovered it very young and had an entire career in studying sleep, and has compiled it all into this really awesome book about anything you want to know about sleep, and also some really amusing anecdotes about being a graduate student researcher in the like 30s or something. Right. So first of all, I want to get something out of the way. We always say that we're tired. And that can mean at least two things, and things that are different. So that can mean that we are sleepy, which means we are likely to fall asleep, or it would be easy to fall asleep. But has anyone been really tired, like late at night, but you can't fall asleep? Yeah, so it must mean something else as well, right? So I like to say sleepy versus fatigued. So sleepy is how likely you are to fall asleep. Fatigued is kind of how much energy you have. So I will try not to say tired throughout this, but I probably will slip a few times. So what is sleep? In Dement's book, he gave two characteristics. The first is that you have a perceptual wall between your conscious mind and the outside world. So consciously, you are cut off from what is happening in the world. Now that could also be like a coma or something, and comas are not sleep. So that leads to the second point, which is that sleep is immediately reversible. Sometimes you have to try a little harder, but if someone is sleeping, you can wake them up. If you can't wake them up, they might be in a coma, and you can take them to the hospital. So sleep is also broken up into stages. There are different types of sleep. And you can actually look at the stage of sleep somebody's in by looking at their EEG readings, their brain waves. When we're awake, we have a certain type of brain waves called beta waves. They're high frequency, low amplitude. And as you go into sleep, you have different brain waves. The stages of sleep are divided into two categories, REM and non-REM. Non-REM has, depending on who you ask, 3 or 4 stages. Stage N1, non-REM 1, you have theta waves, you're easy to wake. I won't go into the details about what the waves are, you can look them up on Wikipedia, all of the sources there. N2 is slightly deeper. You still have the theta waves, but you have sleep spindles and K complexes, which are these weird squigglies that show up on top of the theta waves. And then N3 is called slow wave sleep, which is the deepest non-REM sleep. There used to be a stage 4, it's since been combined with stage 3, but both of them have delta waves. And this is when you are most difficult to wake up. It's also when growing children have their bodies produce growth hormone. So it's kind of the refreshing stage of sleep. The last stage of sleep, which I mentioned before, is REM. You've probably all heard of it. It's rapid eye movement. Your body actually paralyzes your muscles so you can't move. Has anyone heard the Mike Birbiglia fear of sleep? Yeah. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and the results can be terrifying and hilarious depending on your perspective. So Google Mike Birbiglia fear of sleep if you haven't read it. You also dream in REM. I don't know if I said that already. The interesting thing about REM is that you have theta waves like you do in N1, the light stage of sleep, but you also have bursts of alpha and beta waves, which are the waves that you have when you're awake. So your brain is almost awake. It's just cut off from the rest of the world. And that's really oversimplifying. But your brain in REM sleep looks more like your brain when you're awake than it does to your brain when you're in non-REM sleep. So all sleep is not equal. It's different. And the general progression is from N1 to N2 to N3, so you get deeper and deeper. And then you go back to N2, and then into REM. So you kind of go to deep sleep, and then start waking up, you get into REM, and then it cycles. So that is sleep, and those are the stages of sleep. Any comments from other panelists or audience?
You mentioned REM is when you dream.
Yes.
Is there any other times that you dream?
I don't know. Are there?
I don't think so. I think REM is your lead and only time of dreaming.
This is just coming from my professor. I asked the same question, and she's a psychology professor, and told me that you tend to remember your dreams at REM because you're most awakeable at that point. Kind of like you said, you're kind of in that hazy area where you are kind of awake, but you do dream in your other stages. You just can't remember them because there's such a deep, level of sleep. But that's just from her perspective.
Interesting.
It's really tough to know how would you know when somebody was dreaming?
Yeah, right.
I'll get to that.
Yeah. Yep.
I read somewhere online about this phenomenon. I forget what it's called, but it's when you're almost asleep and then suddenly your muscles contract. You feel as though you're falling or slipping. Yeah. I read that this is your brain's sort of panic response to your heart rate, and your muscles relax and your brain's startled into thinking, oh my God, my body's dying. And so it sends a sort of involuntary contraction of the muscle. Do you know if this is real or if this bunk that somebody made up on the internet?
Well, it's definitely something that happens. I mean, I think most of us have probably had that happen.
I just Googled it.
Yeah.
Because I have a computer here. It's called either a hypnotic jerk. You're getting very douchey.
That's going to YouTube.
Excellent. The other was called a sleep starter and a
Yeah, I've read a few different things about what causes them or why we have them. They all sound plausible, and I don't know enough to know how true they are or are not. Yep.
I know that, remember from House, we're going to watch House, I think they call it psychocytic jerk, where your brain's dying, it sends signals to the muscles to try to make sure you're alive.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, in this case, you have to shoot
Right.
But it's not lupus.
Did you have that?
Yeah, in the description of the talk, we talked about that you were going to define what sleep is.
Yes.
And I read part of the book at least called The Physical Consciousness by Evan Walker Harrison. In it, he had an idea, and I think I'm articulating it at least generally right, that as a result of neural firing, there's emissions that need to be dampened or absorbed, and that as waking life goes on, whatever absorbent capacity the brain has is saturated, and after a certain amount of time, you need to have a downtime, a low firing time, to get rid of the buildup of the result of having continued firing. So that even though the body has a mechanism, I can't remember what you said it is, to absorb the, if you will, let's call it the exhaust of consciousness, and that after a certain amount of time that's saturated, and we need the sleep to return to the normal, to empty that out so we can get excited.
Okay, what was that book called?
The Physics of Consciousness.
Physics of Consciousness.
By Evan Walker Harris.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people with ideas of why we sleep and what it does, and everything that I've read has basically said that there are a lot of really good ideas, but no one has conclusively figured out all of the details.
That's everything I've read as well.
Yeah, so it's still an open area of discussion and research.
Of course, from my perspective, whether or not we need to sleep and whether or not our tendency to sleep about 7 to 9 hours a night is actually a biological necessity or just a habit or a genetic throwback, and what happens if you don't do it is the question that comes out of that.
Right.
So if I could say, like, if he's right and he worked out, his theories on the rates, it would be like, what would that mean if he is right and you are able to change your...
My mental catalytic converters.
Right, something like that. So you're able to, speed up the process so that you have an extra number of X hours.
Right. And I will touch on something kind of related to that a little later in the panel.
And I hope I'm not stealing that thunder, but per your comment, not all sleep is equally good at accomplishing that task.
Okay.
And there are other tasks that we'll get into, not only mental but physical as well. And different stages of sleep are more effective than others in accomplishing your goals. So yes, you need sleep. How much is up for debate, but definitely not all sleep is created equal.
Right. And one thing that I have read that seems to be consensus in the scientific community is that there is a genetic component to how much sleep you naturally gravitate towards. Some people are early risers, some people are night owls, some people don't need a lot of sleep just naturally, some people do seem to need a lot of sleep. So there does at least seem to be a genetic component to...
Hey Ed, is
yep.
this hackable?
Well, that's a really good question. I have not heard of anyone doing any gene hacking of sleep.
I don't know about gene hacking, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be hacked.
But yes.
But that's a good point when you talk about what's naturally occurring with sleep. Part of what we're talking about here is how much can you do that's unnatural that still works.
Right, so that's kind of why I said your natural tendency to sleep more, sleep less. Obviously people can sleep less than they need. People do this all the time, and there are probably different ways to do that. Some are better than others, and I'm sure you'll talk about many of them.
I am a huge proponent of the idea that simply getting less sleep than you need is the worst idea in the entire world. I am actually an avid enemy of sleep deprivation. I think people should never be sleep deprived. I chose to take it all in one go by going through a whole bunch of sleep deprivation to adjust to a schedule where I could actually not be sleep deprived, as opposed to sleeping 6 hours when I really needed 9 and being sleep deprived all the time, like your standard American, 50-hour-a-week schmuck.
Yep.
So, yeah. No offense.
So let's move on to the circadian rhythm. Who here has heard of the circadian rhythm? Okay, right. So circadian just means about a day, and the idea is that we all have an internal kind of clock that regulates our energy levels and our sleep cycle. Originally, there was some research that put it at about 25 hours, so it was actually longer than a normal day. And one of the things I'll talk about later is that there are cues that interact with your sleep cycle, and one of them is light. And they had done those experiments in low light, but not in no light. When they eliminated all light at night, so after the sun went down, they got results that were actually, the number I have is 24 hours and 10 minutes about. So much closer to a natural day. One idea of how this might work, and this is again from Dement's book, is the opponent process model. So in the opponent process model, you have two different competing forces. You have sleep debt, and the idea is this is something that generally increases while you're awake and decreases while you are sleeping, at least for some stages of sleep. And the more sleep debt you have, the more sleepy you get. The other side of the process is clock-dependent alerting, which counteracts the sleep debt. So at certain points of the day, you're just naturally more energized than others. So combining those two, you get your total sleepiness. Sleep debt is kind of a controversial topic. lot of people seem to think that there's something like that that exists, but the details are still really sketchy. The closest thing to actually finding what sleep debt physically is a study that came out, it was by, I might butcher this name, it looks like Sugnay and Laurent. And they found that, what was it? I think it was amylase. They found that amylase in your saliva was correlated with sleep debt, whether it was incurred by the losing an hour a night or by staying up for 2 days straight. They found that there was some type of correlation between this substance in your body and having had loss of sleep. So that kind of speaks to what you had mentioned earlier. So how can we address our circadian rhythm? Like, how can we play with it? Light is really important. It's the most important cue. And the way this works is actually really cool. We have these sensors in our eyes. You know that we have the ones that see colors and shapes. You know, we have the rods and the cone. There are other ones that they don't teach about in school because they're a relatively new discovery. They're called melanopsin-containing ganglion cells. Yeah, it rolls off the tongue, right? So they don't convey visual information. They only pick up information about how much light there is. They get sent to our pineal gland and causes it to either produce or not produce melatonin, which you've probably seen. Yeah, right?
Really weird.
Yeah. Right, and melatonin you've probably seen supplements in the store. It's a naturally occurring hormone that influences our sleep cycle. So as the light goes out, melatonin production goes up, and you start to get sleepy. That's the idea. And these cues, you know, it's not like the light goes out and you instantly fall asleep. They kind of shift your natural cycle. And one way I like to think about it, because I have a physics background, is if you're pushing someone on a swing, and then you start pushing them at a different rate or at a different time, eventually they will start swinging to match the way you're pushing them. But it's, you know, you're just kind of shifting, each cycle you're shifting them a little bit. So that's kind of what these cues do. They're not... Right, exactly. Yeah.
Physics is a restudy of kindergarten.
Everything I need to know about physics. I don't know if that's true.
That's a next year's title.
Yeah, I should do that. Yeah, so that's all I have on circadian rhythm. Any of you want to jump in?
I should point, it's fascinating to me. I hear a lot about circadian rhythms, especially like how the heck can you do what you're doing given the circadian rhythm. But it is notable that I can sleep during the day without something over my eyes, but I definitely don't prefer it. It's a lot easier for me to fall asleep if I put something over my face, which is why if you see somebody sitting around with the sleeve of their coat draped over their head, it's me and I'm napping. I've been known to use a sock in desperate situations. Sockers work really well. But I can also sleep without that. Like when I was in the con suite, I didn't put anything over my face, I was just sleeping. But I can't, if I do that for more than one nap a day, because I currently take 3 naps a day, if I do that for more than 1 nap a day, then I definitely start to feel the effects. But like you said, it's not instant, it's sliding. I can feel that I didn't rest as well during that other nap because I was, you know, the sun was in my face, so there was lights. So that's really interesting. I didn't know about the crazy receptors with the awesome name.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite.
Like the Fred receptors.
The
They
Fred
did something.
receptors. Yeah, well, it's rods and cones. Maybe we call them like
Eds. Eds.
No, it's the shape. It needs to be. I don't know what shape they are though. Right. Yep.
So you were talking about how even during the day, circadian rhythm kind of goes up and down. I know like in a lot of countries in the world, they have like siesta time.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know if we can talk about that later.
Yeah, there's
So-
a note
well,
that
there'll be
like
a
right
whole
4 o'clock in the
other
afternoon
Yeah.
or something.
That's,
Yeah.
so that's
That's
how
how
they're
it's like you get tired, you sleep, but that's in the middle of the
Yeah.
day and the sun's out, you know. So
Yeah, so you get, the way it seems to work is you get kind of a boost boost in the morning and then a bigger boost in the evening, and between them there's a dip. And in a lot of cultures, it's customary to sleep during the afternoon, either a little or a lot. And that's a type of polyphasic sleep, which we will talk about tomorrow.
Yes. But that is actually a natural time for people to put a nap
Yeah.
too, is to fit it in either, it seems to be either after your lunch hour when your stomach is full, or about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, like it depends, people seem to have one or the other, but yeah, you're good.
Yeah, totally.
And there are some rules as far as circadian rules, basically saying, here's where I'm gonna lay out my times of sleep so that they're most in sync with
Yeah. People have done some amazing stuff.
I'm trying to look up the link right now.
Tomorrow.
Okay, you can jump in if you need to. I just want to make sure that I'm leaving time for you guys. Yeah, so the next thing I want to talk about is circadian rhythm hacking. So how you can hack it. The easiest way is to mess with the amount of light that you're exposed to. Something you've probably seen a lot of or heard a lot of is light therapy. They sell the boxes and the bright lights. They use them north of the Arctic Circle when they have 6 months of darkness. And basically you just stare at a bright light for 15 to 20 minutes, something like that, every morning, and it convinces your body that it's daytime and that it's time to wake up, and it triggers those cells in your retina. There's the opposite of that too. There is darkness. Why, thank you. Oh, awesome. Yeah, so the opposite is darkness therapy, which you've probably heard less about. But that is basically avoiding artificial light after the sun goes down. So that just the way light wakes you up in the morning, you can prevent yourself from being awoken or being less sleepy at night by avoiding light.
Specifically turning off your monitor at least an hour and a half before you need to go to bed at night.
Yeah.
Which was one of the reasons I decided this traditional sleep hacking is not for me.
Yeah. I've had similar complaints because I'm a coder. I like to stay up late on the computer.
Yeah, it's like if I'm awake.
Out of curiosity, how many people in the audience regularly use some kind of light-producing electronics, meaning television, cell phone,
How many
laptop?
people don't? Does anyone? Is there anyone in the room today?
Yeah, right. So that's not. It's not practical. It's effective, but it's not practical for any of us. So there's another option, which Neil was hinting at earlier, which is virtual darkness therapy. So it turns out that these melanopsin cells are mostly sensitive to blue light. So if you can block out the blue light, say with a pair of glasses, you can trick your brain into thinking it's dark, even when you're, watching Buffy on your laptop or something. Yeah, so that's something that I've personally tried out a lot, and I've found it very helpful when combined with some other things. Another thing that a lot of people do is, sorry, is there a question?
Well, just wanted to say there's a couple of programs that change the amount of blue on computer monitors.
Yes.
That I use to great success.
Yep. What is it called?
Flux is one.
Flux? Yeah, I've seen that. I haven't installed it.
It changes the color of the computer, so it's softer at night and it's more vibrant in the day.
Flex or flux?
Flux, F-L-U.
Yeah.
And I program it with my nap time, so it's brighter in between and that's all.
You can do custom, you can do custom rhythm.
Nice.
Mine's set to low all the time because I'm very sensitive to blue light.
Nice. All right. Thank you.
The other thing you can do, or apart from, or in addition to that, is just for your computer, or select keys that are nighttime correctly. Like this, like Google pages, most web pages are just a blinding thing of white light.
I
And
use custom settings on most websites to take all of the blinding light out of most websites.
whether on Linux, whether it's Window Manager themes or whatever other editors for Firefox and Chrome, and Android themes as well, that'll basically skin everything.
There's a Chrome plugin and a couple other tools that will specifically modify the code for some pages like Facebook and Google to change their background colors.
Yeah, so, was that all the questions? I think you got one. Cool. So method number the second. Melatonin supplements. You've probably seen these at the drugstore. I will go into that.
Okay.
And they're illegal in Canada. That's kind of shocked. Yeah, they're illegal to sell.
Buy like Tylenol 3s. And
Right, exactly.
drugstore.
You can buy opiates, but you can't buy
Really bad.
Right.
And you can buy caffeine, you probably can't buy melatonin, which is kind of, yeah.
Right.
We like people to
Yeah. Well, you know, they've got the Canadian beer and everything.
Canada itself is probably some less than.
Right. And anyway,
Excuse me, where are you getting your information about the illegality of melatonin in Canada?
from my doctor when I lived in Canada.
Okay, I'm from Canada.
Okay.
I buy melatonin
Okay.
from my drugstore.
It may have changed since I found that out, but at one point it was definitely illegal in Canada to sell. It may be that it's just not enforced very well too. Yeah.
I don't believe my drugstore would knowingly violate the law, and they have it displayed quite often.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so.
Yeah. So apparently it is available at least in some parts of Canada. So that's cool. That's good to know. So melatonin is advertised or labeled as a sedative, meaning, well, I don't know if that's the correct term, but the way you are supposed to use it according to the label is to put you to sleep. Like it is advertised as a sleeping pill. And what you get are these extremely high doses of between 3 and 10 milligrams, and they tell you to take them something like 30 minutes or an hour before bed. And this information comes from some really nifty papers that are out there on studying the circadian rhythms of people who were born blind, who tend to have circadian rhythm problems. And they're one of the best groups of people to work with in studying things like melatonin because they don't have those natural cues, so you can see how the drugs affect your system. One of these studies they found that, and I'll throw up the sources on my website afterwards, they found that the blood levels of melatonin were 40 times higher after taking one of these supplements than they normally would be in a normal person who was like sleeping well. So they're likely to cause grogginess in the morning, and they're likely to make you tolerant because you're just blasting your body with completely unnatural levels of the stuff. And that's what you need to do for it to have any effect on making you go to sleep. You know, you remember I said earlier, you know, the light cues are like kind of slowly shifting someone who's swinging on a swing. They're not really good at completely changing you know, within an hour. The alternative way to use them is as a phase shift. So you can use them over many days to shift your cycle. So if you're doing that, it involves lower doses, like 0.5 milligram. So, and this is from my personal experience, what I tend to do is if I find myself staying up too late and having trouble getting up in the morning, I will take a 3 milligram, which is the lowest they sell at the store. I'll quarter it, and I will just take a quarter every day. And I take it something like 5 hours before bed. And it usually starts to kick in about the time I'm ready to. I want to get sleep. Right, it just makes it easier for me to go to sleep a little earlier. A little easier to go to sleep a little earlier. And then over several days, I kind of shift back.
Is there any dependency?
Melatonin, I'm not a doctor, I should just say I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure melatonin has no risk of dependency. You know, it's a natural chemical that occurs.
Psychological dependency is one thing, but physically,
Yeah.
Which is one is in stark contrast to a lot of other sleep aids.
Right.
Which you have to get into.
Yeah, and then I should mention, the other kind of over-the-counter solution is antihistamines like Benadryl, diphenhydramine, which I found actually pretty effective at knocking you out in relatively short order. You know, they're not the most powerful, they're not habit-forming, But if you really need to get to sleep and you can't, they're probably more effective than something like melatonin.
Actually, you know what else works really good for me? I'm serious, like,
That'll put me out, but not keep me asleep.
Yeah, so those are kind of the basics of circadian rhythm hacking and the things that I've worked with. I guess I should say that my biggest success has come with combining melatonin with the virtual darkness therapy. So as soon as the sun goes down, putting on a pair of yellow glasses. I'm not doing it now because I'm at a con and my sleep schedule is going to be messed up anyway. And then taking the melatonin supplement as well. And you had a question? Someone? Thought I said. Yeah. Next subject is napping. Anyone want to jump in before I go to that? Okay, so I'll touch a little bit on napping.
But keep in mind too, if you're short on time,
yeah,
you can do your segment on napping tomorrow too.
That's true. Yeah, I'll leave napping for tomorrow.
There will be extensive discussions of napping tomorrow.
And the question about siestas as well. We'll definitely be covering in the
Because that's kind of a special breed of publications.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely talk about that.
So actually, that's basically what I have.
If I could segue on that again on your token technology guy, I guess on this side, you were talking about the light therapy, the dark therapy, and everything. And I know you mentioned blue blockers. These sunglasses that I was putting on, partially just a kid, but these are nothing special and magical. They are, $10 sunglasses that I picked up on vacation because I always lose mine. But not all sunglasses are created equal, and you can tell just by looking through them. And you find one that makes everything look kind of brown, and that's the idea.
You can also just use yellow lenses too. They make them so they're not dimming everything. You can still see what you're doing, but they yellow everything out so you're not absorbing the blue.
Have you ever seen gunners?
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Those work those simulate being in darkness or being in light?
They filter out some of the blue from the computer monitors.
It's supposed to be good for your eyes too if you get eye strain, which I do, so I should totally look into that.
Also, yeah, if for the people that wear just regular glasses, there are coatings that you can get on your lenses. I think they're like computer coatings. Really expensive from what I've seen, but I have them on mine and I'm sure with it for what that's worth. Some of the things I've done, I've actually been known to put these exact sunglasses on while I'm using my computer. If it's whenever time of night and it's dark and you need to be asleep soon, I'll just put these on just to kind of get ready and everything. Because again, you've got that blinding light that's a couple feet from your face. Having the sunglasses helps. And also for I won't get into it too much, but taking naps during the day or whatever, if it's light, I know you've got something as low tech as a coat sleeve, or they make, they make those special sleeve masks that you can put on. I don't have one of those just because I don't want it to be confused for something kinky. Especially here. But I'll throw on some sunglasses, even if it's not bright out. I'll throw sunglasses on. They work fine.
I think we have 20 minutes.
We have 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have that, and then I had a couple of just general hacks.
Okay, so I'll be super quick. So the last thing I want to say on light therapy, gadget-wise, talking about light waking you up in the morning, I happen to have an awesome shower panel that's got blue LEDs built into it, and I found that's pretty effective in waking you up in the morning. Take a morning shower, you just flood a blue light, and by the time I'm clean, I'm also awake. I find that helps a bit as well, but you can definitely stimulate that. I mean, walk around, there's any number of LED hacking projects out there you can see.
Yeah, there's also this thing you can do, going outside instead of
outside what?
It's very
But that only works for a certain fraction of the hours during the day as well. And if you wake up, all hearing ears. Yeah. So another piece of technology that I found that works pretty darn well for getting up when it's dark is an alarm clock that's light-based. There's several available for sale. A lot of them are way overpriced for my taste. I have one of those overpriced ones. I got it as a gift. I'm very happy with it. I wouldn't pay that money myself, but I have found it's very nice as far as, you know, when the lights are on, it's a lot easier to wake up. But again, you don't generally want to sleep with the lights on. At least I don't.
Right.
Outlet timers,
like security.
Outlet timers. I love outlet timers.
Just use one for, you get one of the spectrum bulbs that you can get for like $5 at Meijer. The other ones that are like expanded spectrum. Put it into a lamp by your bed and put it on timer.
It's a fantastic work on some of the advantages that some of these more advanced ones have is they'll generally wake up like a sunrise and everything.
That's what Arduino's for.
Exactly, and that's a yet unrealized project of mine. So really quick, I'm gonna throw that over there. I'll just pass it around that way, and then I'll pass this around this way. But this is the Zio Sleep Manager. So as far as technology and hacking things generally, science-wise, it's hard to control what you can't measure. And with this, obviously, for sleep-wise, you can somewhat measure. You can time your naps. You can schedule.
This is an EEG.
Yes.
It goes on your head while you sleep, and it tracks tracks your brainwaves. So when you wake up and there's a.
When you see that come around, there's silver fabric contacts. It's not like the EEG you think about with they slather the goo on and everything. It's just a headband. You put it on day, night, whatever when you sleep, and it connects over Bluetooth to your phone. There's an Android app and an iPhone app. I should say I'm in no way affiliated with this, but I just.
I actually met these guys. I gave a talk at Zio. They're based in Boston, around Boston. And when they came out, when they launched this, I went to their big cool startup space and like all the crazy stuff. And I met them and I got one of the early units to try. It didn't work for me, various reasons, but it is it's a cool idea, and especially if you are looking to gather data. Because for some people, hacking sleep is just about, you know what, I want my sleep more like this, I'm gonna, just like you go, I want to be a vegetarian, I'm not eating meat anymore, done. And for some people, especially if your situation is, you know, has extenuating circumstances or there's something about it that's very particular, you may need that data, or you may want to track that data as you're doing it and see what's changing, etc. I don't know if you were going to point out, but it's worth noting that Zio does not initially work for naps. They give you the SDK is open source, so you can take their software and modify it so that it will record data at any length of sleep, but currently out of the box it only starts recording when you've been asleep 15 minutes, which makes it worthless if you're trying to be polyphasic. I like to tell people that up front.
There's been some firmware improvements on it, and also there's some data that is captured, just not available for
it
viewing.
Just doesn't get through the app. And they've been great. Like every single time somebody has pointed out to them, we would like you to fix this or something, they're ultra responsive, and I think they're a great company.
Now, one thing, there was a lot of stink with them when they first came out with this, and a lot of people unhappy with the iPhone side of the app. I can't speak to that. I'm Android all the way, but I've been very happy with the Android app and the performance software and hardware-wise. Just so I don't play favorites, I know Roger's got a point here, I'll get to you in a second. Just so I don't play favorites, there are other EEG things out there on Neuroskylink's one. The Zio is specifically geared towards measuring sleep. Things like the Neurosky are more general interfaces. We had somebody from I3 Detroit make a divine-powered flamethrower. But, rather good point.
Well, it's not what you think. My question is, how accurate is the data coming out of there? Because, you know, it's somehow measuring and interpreting an EEG that's from the surface of your skin.
And for the programmers, interesting thing, they have an artificial neural network implemented in hardware on chip on that. So it's distilling the EEG readings and reading things, the sleep spindles and the K levels.
So one thing that matters though, how much hair do you have? Because for me, I was never able to really get accurate data out of it. That the thing would slip And if it gets anywhere near my hair, it just, no way. You know, I tried tying my hair up and everything. For me, it was just that.
I don't have that problem.
Yeah, and they were, like I said, they've always been awesome to me. They gave me a sticky one to put on my forehead, which unfortunately didn't really do it either because the sticky stuff wears off. But anyway, sorry.
More questions?
Yeah.
So what's the price of the device, and is it legal in Canada?
I can't speak to that side. I own 2 of these. I picked up one on Amazon for $50. I picked up a second one. I got it on Kowloon for a steal. It was like $20.
It also makes a really nice, like it has alarm clock functions, and it is probably like, I don't actually use mine right now, but it has a really good alarm clock.
Now there's a couple, there's the baseline that I'm describing. There's a pro version that's more expensive. I'm not sure what the difference is. It still links to the phone. Now they have another model that's really, really expensive. I believe Roger owns it. It's a desktop model, and instead of connecting to your phone over Bluetooth, it connects, it's got its own like actual alarm clock desk side thing that it communicates over a proprietary protocol. But there is a serial interface to that specific one that you plug into. You plug a serial adapter and connect to it. But it's like hellaciously expensive. It's like $200-300.
No, this is less than 100 actually. I got a Best Buy with a coupon.
Interesting. Well, there's so basically the takeaway is there's several different models at different price points.
And there are different ways to do it, but I guess the important takeaway is if you need data or you will benefit from data, you know, portable EEGs are out there and are a really good way to be able to get and track safe data. And of course, half the people in this room could just write their own software and not worry about what comes with it anyway.
Speaking of which, on GitHub, search for Zeo on GitHub, and there will be several projects out there, both data APIs and just end user projects. There's one by me, Crazy Pyro, called Your Zeo. I don't know if the project's up there. I don't have code posted yet, but I'll